Hi, Tarla. Well, it's great speaking with you again. And after the introduction, it really got me thinking about a lot of things to do with myself. Now, I would like to lose weight, and I have a love-love relationship with food, I think, or probably love-love-hate. And look, you've been on the journey. I occasionally swing by you and I go, oh, Tarla, show me some of your wonderful stuff. But, like Christmas is coming up and I'm going, oh, what am I going to do? I'm going to pork out. I'm going to feel full. I'm going to have a food baby. I'm going to have a food coma. I'm going to hate myself. I'm going to love being with my family and friends, but then I'm going to go, oh my God, I want to lose weight and look what I'm doing. I'm eating all this shit. And then I'm going to feel sad about myself and vicious cycle, I know. So you've seen me go through it. So like, what's your thoughts to share with people in my situation?
Well, I'm sure it's not a unique situation, Kathy, and I know that there's definitely times I think we probably all go through the comfort eating and things like that. So it's very human, and so it's not something to be ashamed about. But I guess it's just something I've come across recently that I found, I guess, quite helpful is sometimes knowing what's actually going on in the body can help us make different choices or better choices. And some research that's recently I've been reading about is specifically linked sort of around depression and that very strong link between food and depression. But it's sort of people sometimes think it goes only one way as, oh, I'm depressed, therefore I feel like eating, so I overeat. But actually, no, there's certain foods that if you do eat them actually exacerbate the depression and make you feel worse. So it's not just a question of feeling guilty. There's actually physiological things going on in the body that the food has triggered that actually does, for example, decrease, serotonin levels and things like this that normally make you feel good. So it's not a case of just, I guess, willpower. It's not just a mental game, I guess is what I'm saying. And I think that knowledge, hopefully, if you permit me to, I guess, share a few of these foods that can cause that cycle, maybe you have a different lens at which to look through in terms of when you're making those choices, or just understanding, these things are happening when I eat these foods. If I eat these other foods, that hopefully puts me on an upward spiral rather than the downward sort of trend that sometimes we get into.
Yeah. Oh, that's look, I guess, you're right, because I think that food and my mental health is like related to I am sad or whatever, so therefore I go pork out on something. Generally chocolate, but and I do like to think that chocolate is a vegetable, so it's okay. that's my cognitive dissonance happening there. Listen, you've actually shared some videos with me from about a Dr. Fritz Kauffer. But before I get on to him, you mentioned that you have been reading a book recently. So can you share the name of the book that we can share?
This is a really interesting, this is the book I have been reading, and that's where it talks a lot about the research that I guess I just mentioned before. They've done quite a lot of studies now in terms of, I guess, studying the diets of depressed people, for example. That's sort of, this book deals with a lot of different conditions, but this is sort of in terms of the discussion on depression. And so they know particular foods are strongly linked to depression, and people that have depression generally have high proportions of these foods in their diets. And so I guess the good thing is that we also know that if you improve your diet and improve, for example, your gut health in particular, then generally that will have an improved, result in improved mood, improved feelings in terms of addressing, I guess, that depression. And it's not to say that it can be done necessarily without other interventions. Like it's not saying it's going to replace the more traditional, perhaps medication or psychiatric treatments and things, but it's saying it's a very key part of it. We can't deny that the gut-brain connection and the messages that go both ways there. So it's really interesting. He sort of said it's a relatively new field, but it seems to be quite becoming much more mainstream, the idea of nutritional psychiatry, where they actually, I guess, are much more focused on that food and gut-brain connection and health of the gut and things like that as being integral parts of the, I guess, treatment process for people.
All right. Yeah. Look, I mean, I know for myself is, and I've, been around people who have, like, I wouldn't class myself as depressed at any point.
Yeah.
But, I have that, I guess, awareness of the gut being very similar to the brain, and we talk about intuition, and then the holistic health and energy work that we do really connects, I guess, gut and brain together anyway.
Yeah.
So it makes sense that if what you're eating is causing, can directly cause those sorts of, psychological or neurological responses, because it is your brain, like it is the same material. Like scientifically, when they look at how the gut, the gut and the brain, the little fetus sort of comes apart like that, and that's the head and that's the gut. And it's the same cell, that master cell that creates them. So it makes sense that, like what you eat causes it. But, I've always thought of it as a reaction to not feeling flash hot. Now, you gave me some bedtime reading from the last time we spoke, and about Fritz Kaphoff. And I really did enjoy his lecture, and he spoke about 3 or 4 systems, but the fourth one's really the connection of the other 3, which is biological, social, and neurological, physiological. So again, that's what you're talking about, isn't it? Which is, the biology of the body has that connection and brain network to, what we're actually thinking and feeling about ourselves.
Absolutely. I think I find him a fascinating speaker, because he is very focused on that interconnectedness of everything, and that we can't separate different, for example, parts of ourselves. The mind is not separate from the body. You can't, draw a distinction between them. It's sort of, so at some point in history, we decided they were separate entities, and that, you studied one or you studied the other. But fortunately now, I guess we seem to be back into the more integrated space where the connections are recognised. And we spoke, I think, briefly last week about how, we are a product of our environments. We can't help but interact with our environment. It's what we breathe. It's what we, see, sense, smell, eat. Actually becomes part of our bodies, and that's something that we sort of can't deny. But it's very interesting to me how they've made some very researchers now made some very definite connections between, for example, certain food and depression as a condition, and certain foods and other sort of conditions that we may have thought are primarily due to our thoughts or sort of other things in the body. But
and they both have to be treated, because in some of the work that I do energetically is it's actually dealing with how the mind thinks and sees about things, and potentially in past lives as well. And that's up to anyone's belief system about that, but it's still that same premise, which is you've got to deal with the whole system. It's not just the food, it's not just the mind, it's not the conditions that you're living in. You have to deal with the whole thing. Now, I'm interested in having a little exploring with you, because you know way more about it than me. That's why I'm talking to you. So we talked about like how the food that you eat could be causing the depression. Is it because like there's food residue left in the gut, or is it just that you're not processing it, or is there something that, this is putting you on the spot, I know.
Nope, I'm just going to try and find the
find something I prepared earlier.
Well, it's like something that I was had ready, that I guess to me it seems, and again I'm not a super expert on this, but it seems to be it's more like the chemical reactions that are occurring. So there'll be there's mood regulating neurotransmitters, like for example serotonin, and your mood can be directed by the levels of that you have in your system. So if something throws out that balance, then that's going to affect your mood, for example. So it's To me, it's more like that. I guess how it influences the messages that are being sent between the gut and the brain. And like I said, those messages can go both ways. It's not just a one-way street. It's quite a complex relationship between the gut and the brain. So it's there's a lot of things going on, but there's a very definite link between that gut and conditions like depression. So anything that gut health, it's primarily about the health of the microbiome. So it's more like your sort of bacterial components in your gut. And there's certain foods that will throw out the sort of the balance of those, I guess in a simplistic sense, the good and bad bacteria in your gut. And if they are not in the right balance, then that will have an effect on your mood and how you're feeling.
Okay. So, and yes, we're not encouraging people to go away from whatever the doctors say about their medical things, but if they wanted a choice to start dealing with this, I mean, obviously stop eating KFC might be a help. Like everybody knows the obvious fatty foods and all foods that are bad for us. But one of the things that interests me in you and I's journey together over time on food is that I thought I was eating healthy, but I'm sticking, for example, tomato sauce or pre-made salad dressings onto my salads, and and you drew my attention to like, oh, see all of this? It's sugar, 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 and sugar. And then you had all the preservatives and shit like that. So I'm putting that into my body day in, day out, which has probably contributed to this. It's a piece of art. I've been working on it for a very long time. and we'll get there. But there was a point to me bringing that up, which is you can. I mean, for me, is I was thinking I was eating healthy, and yet I'm doing things like that. And like I grew up basically in the bush, and I didn't eat takeaway foods. In fact, it wasn't until I was about over 25 that I knew how to cook anything using a tin of anything. Like everything I cooked was like from fresh, I guess there's reasonably fresh ingredients that you can buy in the supermarkets, because there's a debate about how fresh things are actually in the supermarket. But certainly while I lived with my parents, a lot of stuff came out of the garden and things like that. So I did eat, so I've got a really good grounding and basis in my body system, but then I've been determined to like destroy that. It's about 20.
No, well, it's like, I can share with you, I guess, what the research shows in terms of which foods are strongly linked, say, to depression, and which foods will enhance your mood and help deal with it. So, I mean, you've already touched on sugars, sort of high up there. Sugars, any sort of very common in things like baked goods, a lot of drinks, a lot of this book sort of definitely mentions sort of the high fructose corn syrup, which most people sort of aware is really quite detrimental to their health in many ways.
So what did you call that? What was that word?
Oh, the high fructose corn syrup. It's used a lot in American,
right,
American food products, a lot of processed food. But other things on the list were things like you've already said as well, like fried foods. It's the sort of the oils that that they're sort of generally cooked in are part of the issue, because the trans fats like margarine, hydrogenated oils are detrimental in terms of to depression. So other things on the list are high glycemic index carbohydrates, so the ones that sort of probably have most quickest impact on your blood sugar levels.
So you think like you can't have potato anymore?
Potato is on the list, sweetheart. I'm sorry. But I will say, I'm sure everything in moderation, but things like white bread, white rice and things like this, sort of anything made from refined flour, generally on the list. Artificial sweeteners, there's a strong link there. So that's something that perhaps some may not think about. Fried foods are bad fats and nitrates. So nitrates in terms of definitely often in things like bacon, salami, sausage, other cured meats. So
I can give up most things, but bacon, it's like
again, moderation.
They're making me give up potato and bacon, right? Okay. and okay, so what's going to make me happy? Maybe I'm eating more of the happy foods.
So foods to embrace, in accordance with the book I've been reading, are things like, it's sort of a lot of things to, I guess, to improve your gut health. So things like the probiotics, yogurts with active cultures, the tempeh, miso, natto, sauerkraut, kefir, kimchi, kombucha, all of these sorts of foods, really good for the gut health. Prebiotics to provide the fuel, I guess, for the bacteria and in your microbiome. So things like beans, oats, bananas, berries, garlic, onion, asparagus, leeks, all those sort of prebiotic foods.
Oh, okay. I do eat a lot of those, yeah.
Yes.
Maybe I'm balancing myself out.
Well, it certainly must help to be,
maybe the potatoes are just inching ahead.
And it also says a low glycemic index carbohydrates, like your brown rice, your quinoa, chia seeds, steel cut oats. And they say the medium glycemic index foods in moderation. So it's things more like your honey, orange juice, whole grain bread, things like that. Healthy fats. So it's like your olive oil, nut butters, avocados, those monounsaturated fats. Omega-3 fatty acids, so especially found in fish, like oily fish in particular, salmon, mackerel, tuna, herring, sardines, those type of foods. A lot of the B vitamins, and particularly B9, B12, B1, B6, A and C. Those vitamins are very beneficial. And things like your iron, magnesium, potassium, zinc, selenium, super spices, saffron, turmeric. That's,
it sounds like all the good stuff is not stuff that you can actually go and buy off the shelf, though. And
well, it's not true. I mean, there's a lot of things there that you can go and buy your olive oil. You can go and have your.
True. Yes. Sorry.
Most of it, I'd say, you can buy fish. You can certainly get tin fish if you can't get sort of fresh fish. Spices are readily available. I don't know about saffron. I haven't tried to buy that for a long time, but it used to be very expensive.
It's still expensive. It's like 10 times more expensive than gold, or 100 times more expensive.
Yes. So, we all can make our choices around that. But, herbs and things readily available. So I think, honestly, most of it is sort of, I guess, food, and it's, as we spoke about last time, sort of in its I guess its real form, or ideally an unprocessed form. So I think as soon as we start processing food, it sort of gets into that, and having all the, I guess, less desirable things in there.
Yeah. Well, and thinking it through, is I probably used the wrong words. It's not that it's not readily available. Is the good stuff sounds like you put a little bit of these things into the dishes, and that potentially that like the little bits of herbs and that sort of stuff, and so it's the herbs and spices, and then I just had the Kentucky Fried ad going. It's a secret 11 herbs and spices, and that might have been the good thing, and then they stuck it in the deep fryer. So it's
yes.
Actually, speaking of which, is like this series is about the interconnectedness of food, and just how all of these different things are related, and I'm sure we can go down a lot of rabbit holes, and we will eventually. But one of the things I'd like to potentially finish with is, and you can throw your comments in on this one, is years ago, like one of the things about eggs particularly is they did a study in I think the Mediterranean, and they said, eggs are bad for you, and yet the Mediterraneans are eating crap ton of eggs. Anyway, it turns out that basically they eat free range eggs, which is, well, that's good for you, but particularly over there in the Mediterranean, there's this little weed thing that is phenomenally high in omega-3s. So the Mediterranean eggs in general
interesting.
are very, very, very extremely, like they actually tested higher than like tuna and stuff like that.
Yeah, wow.
And they were going, this is not an egg.
Funny.
And that weed is actually in Australia. So I do, but again, like you can't, so for the people out there, if you see I think I have seen some eggs occasionally where they sort of say these are high in vitamin or omega-3s or something like that. And it's actually, so that interconnected is like the chook is eating the stuff, and then it's putting that nutrients into the egg as the end product. So, you know, like, but if you're having a battery hen egg, you're not getting that.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, it's absolutely right.
Or you're getting the crap that they are putting in, because, like, you know, if that's what an organic chicken is eating, this thing and getting high omega-3 into their eggs, like, what's a battery hen putting into their egg? So you know, so anyway, I thought I'd bring that in, that interconnectedness, because it's like you could eat an egg, but you just really don't know where it's come from, and that's why growing your own is a good idea, because you know what you've been putting into it.
That's absolutely right, absolutely, and that's what I think I've found over the years. It's very difficult to be simplistic about a lot of health and nutrition things, because, as you've said, an egg is not an egg. It's not a consistent thing, you know, in terms of its nutritional profile. That's right. And that's the same with, you know, sort of grass-fed beef versus, you know, factory farmed beef, for example. You know, quite different nutritional profiles. You know, animals that see the sun, animals that don't, you know, they're going to have different things in their products that we consume. So it's very, I think some things, you know, in terms of popular media seem to have been simplistically portrayed, and that's, you know, there's other levels of subtlety that I guess I'm interested in terms of when you sort of dig down into, you know, into your own personal choices about things and stuff like that.
Yes, and a sad thing for me, for myself, is when I was raising my kids, I didn't have enough money to go and buy organic for them and all of that. And now that they've all left home and, you know, doing their own thing, is now I'm going, right, I'm going to buy that organic beef and things like that. And it's like, actually, that's what I needed to give my kids. But I you know, that was a choice at the time. I gave them the best I could afford at the time, but
that's right. That's right. And I guess I'm of the personal point of view that if you're learning to cook with an egg and you're using that in your meals, it might not be, I'm going to say inverted commas, the best egg, but you're still learning. It's you know, it's an egg, and that, you know, at some point in time maybe you improve the quality of that egg, but at least you're learning to use that in your, you know, in your everyday cooking. Like, you know, it's sort of, rather than, I think, avoiding some things because you can't get the best thing, I think just learning to cook with, you know, hopefully whole fresh foods.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, it's a really good starting point.
Yeah, and even like to come back to the salad example, is you make a salad and get nice fresh vinegar, fresh lemon, fresh sea salt, and put that together, and at least then, you know, like you said, you know that you might get better lettuces and better whatevers, but
that's right.
Hey, look,
but at least you're getting used to eating that way and you're preparing food in that way, and I think it's easy to upgrade from there. Yeah,
exactly. And it gets that thought process within and the patterns established.
That's right.
For yourself and like your kids. Well, I've gone past it, but hopefully people listening can start thinking that way and going, this is, you know, start establishing those patterns, so that at least for the next generation and for yourself as well, because this is all about you, as I keep saying. Is start this for yourself and go on this journey. Well, Tarla, it's great. As always, like, subscribe, donate down below. As always, any last words, Tarla, on interconnectedness of food?
No, as you've already said, it's a big topic, so we'll chip away at it, and I'm sure we'll have a lot more interesting conversations about it. Okay, well, I will catch you next time. Bye. Okay, thanks, Kathy. Bye-bye.